Hey, this is Dr. Jeff Cumrow, and one of the biggest challenges I see my patients come in with is not knowing what to eat or how to go through the grocery store. So today, we're going to take you shopping. Everybody thinks that granola bars are something that is healthy. 28 grams of sugar per serving, that's a ton. Half of people with actual gluten intolerance actually have a corn intolerance as well. So about 15 years ago, I got diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroiditis. It's an autoimmune condition that really attacked my thyroid. You know, I got to my heaviest weight ever was 175 pounds, and I know some of you are going to laugh at that, but you know, for me that was pretty big. And within a month, I was down between 145 and 150 pounds, and you know, that's a huge drop, and it scared me to death. I could run one lap around, it wasn't even a 100-meter track, and I had to stop and catch my breath. And this is somebody who at the time was working out 6-7 days a week. So I was in really good shape, but my body was not working with me. It was a scary situation in the beginning where they waited for that. They waited for my thyroid to calm down. And once it did, then they put me on Synthroid, and they're like, all right, you're on Synthroid the rest of your life. When I went to that seminar and the guy asked, you know, if you've got a thyroid condition, why are you working, or if you've got an immune condition, why are you working on your thyroid? Made a lot of sense. So I looked into it, and one of the things that he taught me is, you know, the things that you're eating have a huge impact on your overall health. And what I was doing was eating my inflammation. I didn't realize that I had issues because my body was so acclimated, it adapted to having all those extra toxic things in it. But when I got my food intolerance testing back, I found out that wheat does not do good with me. You know, gluten is something that is highly inflammatory. Oats are highly inflammatory. Eggs, milk, corn. Just by taking out some of those foods, my health dramatically improved. And when you combine that with other steps to bring everything together, you know, my health has made a tremendous, you know, turnaround. I've come full circle. I'm completely off medications. I have better energy than I've had in about 20 years. You know, we'll walk into the grocery store today and we'll see some of the things that people consider health foods, and we're going to look at what's in it. And you know, it's confusing because it's marketed as health food. It looks like health food, and people think it's health food, but it's not necessarily healthy for you. It's not something that is going to work for you, and that's the big thing we have to differentiate here. What we're going to look at today is we're going to look at some foods that people consider healthy. We're going to look at some other options on some maybe perhaps better choices for a lot of people. And you know, we don't have a health food store here in Nebraska City, so we're going to walk into Fairway, look at the grocery store that most people shop at. You know, it can be done anywhere. Yes, in certain places it is a little bit more difficult, but it can be done anywhere. Everybody thinks that granola bars are something that is healthy, and what we're going to look at today is the ingredients. We're going to look at the nutritional information on it and show you that a lot of times the granola bars are not really your best option. And you know, you see a lot of people giving these to their kids. You see a lot of people eating them themselves, and really they're taking in a bunch of extra sugar and, you know, some other inflammatory products too. We won't pick on anybody in particular here, but let's just grab Nature Valley. That's something that a lot of people end up buying. You look at the sugar in each one. You got six grams of sugar, not quite as bad as some of those, but peanuts, one of the most inflammatory foods. Soy, one of the most inflammatory foods. Got sugar, corn syrup, whey, so it's got milk in it. So you've really got a lot of the most common inflammatory foods out there. A lot of the 8 most common allergens in the world are in these. So if you have food intolerances, and food intolerances aren't going to show up like allergies, you're not going to get a skin rash or different things like that. Some people have a stomach ache, some people get a runny nose, they're more prone to sinus infections, some people have a little bit of bloating or gassiness, some people are just tired for a couple of days. They all present in different ways, and people just don't realize this. The body adapts to it. So, you know, these are something that can throw a lot of inflammation your way. Let's look at Quakers, just for example. They're another popular brand here, and again, we've got wheat, we've got soy, we've got milk. I mean, it's all the same things. When we look at the sugar in these, 13 grams of sugar, and I know that these are smaller just from the history of actually eating them, thinking that they were health food. And I think a lot of people are caught in this trap, and you see a lot of kids that are eating the same stuff. And if they're inflamed when they're little, they're trying to develop. That's going to lead them down a bad road. So this is something that we really need to address and come up with some better alternatives. Okay, so we're in the juice aisle here, and this is another area where you see a lot of kids that are drinking a ton of juice. And juice in general is something that can be good, but it's one of the most misleading things out there. Obviously you have to be careful because we don't want the kids to have too much sugar. You see a lot of tooth decay, but you also see a lot of inflammation throughout the body. So just something that we really want to be careful with. And we'll just pick a random one here. We'll look at V8 100% juice, but let's actually look a little bit more in depth here. So we got 28 grams of sugar per serving. That's a ton. That is a lot. Now, when we look at it, it is juice from concentrate. So what they're trying to do here is say 100% juice. So you think that it's actually juice from the original thing, but it's actually concentrated and then put back into a juice form. Whereas if let me find one here. So this one, juice with pulp, and it is water extract, but 100% prune juice. So that's not from concentrate, which is something you'll want to look for. Again, a lot of these you'll see not concentrate if it is the actual stuff. So those are some of the things to look for. But when you look at the sugar, even in these, 26 grams of sugar per serving. And some people, that's all they're giving their kids. They're not giving them any water. They're just giving them the juice, and they're getting a ton of sugar, getting a ton of inflammation with that, and that's what they're getting used to early. So it sets you up for a lot of chronic diseases with that. Gluten-free is something that there's a lot of confusion about. People look at gluten and they're like, I don't want to have gluten in my system, but they replace it with other things. You look at the gluten-free labels. Gluten-free label, technically there's some confusion on this, because when you have a gluten intolerance, you have an increased likelihood to have a milk intolerance, you have an increased likelihood to have a corn intolerance, you have slightly increased spinach and tomato risk as well. So things you need to be aware of, things that nobody tells you. It took me a long time to figure that out, and once I did, my health really changed that much more. So when we look at things like pasta, it is listed as gluten-free, but it's made with corn. So this is something that could give, like I said, half of people with actual gluten intolerance actually have a corn intolerance as well. So half of people that eat this can be inflammatory, and that's something to look at. When we look at gluten-free products, a lot of them are going to still be packed with sugar, so that's something you want to look at. And I guess another thing we should cover on the corn is corn can be shown in a lot of different ways. Corn flour is one way that it will show up. High fructose corn syrup, it can show up in baking powder, it can show up in cornstarch. So there's a lot of different ways that can show up. So you have to be careful and know all of the different names, and that can be difficult, and it's overwhelming looking at labels on some of this stuff, but we can simplify it for you as much as possible. Now, when you look at some of this stuff, and we're not going to pick on some of the dessert foods, because that's an easy target, but let's look at like pancakes. You look at this, 9 grams of sugar per serving. Again, a lot of sugar. This has milk, so it's going to be increased odds that half of people are going to be inflamed by this as well. And how do you know those combinations? It's a combination of getting tested, it's a combination of knowing the cross-reactivity, and it's a combination of experimentation. So there's no one way that you're going to have until you actually get out there, get the testing, and play around with what works best for you. So there are a lot of marketers out there that are trying to get your attention by putting all natural on things. And people confuse this with healthy. They're like, all right, it's from nature, so that's a good thing, right? But when you look at things, things like arsenic or any of the diseases, anything like that, they're all natural. So, natural is something that is associated with healthy, but it doesn't mean healthy. It just means it's something that is, natural. So they could take something that is not natural, mix it together with other things, and make it natural. And let's see if we can find an example of that. I don't know if we'll find one here or not, but a lot of places, the cereal aisle is one place you're going to find it. This would be something. No artificial flavors would be another thing to look for. Just because it's no artificial doesn't mean that it's not going to have other things mixed in with it. Just because something is natural does not mean it's healthy, and that's an area to be careful with. We look at white bread, and all natural white bread, yeah, it's all natural, but when you look at how wheat comes out, you've got the bran on it, and then you've got the germ on the inside. So what do they do to make white bread? They take all the bran out. So it is all natural, but it is actually only giving you a part of the grain. So when we look at it, yeah, it's taken from nature, but it's kind of a frankenfood in that. So, you know, like I said, I don't eat gluten, and a lot of people shouldn't eat gluten. In fact, Mark Hyman has done a ton of research on this, done over 10,000 subjects, and said he hasn't found one that gluten doesn't inflame. So probably best to stay away from it in general, but you know, the white bread is something that they say all natural, but it's not really something that you find in nature. All right, and two things that we commonly see in the grocery store, reduced fat, not necessarily a good thing. Let's just pick this up and we'll do a little research here. What they've done here is 1 tablespoon or 2 tablespoons is the serving size on both of them, but you can see on there 4 grams of sugar in that versus 3 grams in this. So what they've done is by reducing the fat, they've added a little bit of sugar to give you that extra taste. Depending on what kind of fat you get, a lot of fat is going to be better than sugar. So don't take that the wrong way. There are still some fats that can be worse, but we want to make sure that we're actually getting good quality products. So don't necessarily fall for that reduced fat, because a lot of times it's filled with extra junk. Another thing that we commonly see, sugar-free. And let's look at what they've replaced the sugars with in this. 0 sugars, right? But you look in here and there are going to be sugar alcohols in here, and your body doesn't really recognize what sugar alcohols are, so it doesn't do the best job of breaking them down, and your detoxification systems have to work better. So your liver's going to have to work a little bit harder, kidney's going to have to work a little bit harder, you're using more antioxidants in your body. With that, you have to have better nutrition. So sugar-free, fat-free, reduced fat, things like that are words that you're going to want to look out for when it's not necessarily there for your best interest. Like I said, shopping is something that really confuses people. It's something that a lot of people don't know what their options are. They don't know what's healthy, and they've been tricked by some of these marketers to buy their foods. And as you've seen, it can be difficult to find the things. It can be difficult to navigate, but no matter where you go, you don't have to have a health food store. Health food stores are filled with a lot of the same stuff here. So you can go to your local grocery store and find a lot of the things you need to move your health forward. It's just a matter of making the extra effort to read the labels and find out what really is in there. I appreciate you guys coming shopping with me, and if you need any help, let me know. We're happy to help you navigate this.